Good evening and welcome to Synaxis Press again. I had just completed some correspondence and looking at the updates on ResearchGate and followed through on some developments in artificial intelligence that had been sent to me by colleagues in the sciences. And it occurs to me that far too many of our church leaders, as well as lay people, but in particular church leaders who should perhaps be better informed, realize the developments that are taking place very rapidly in sciences and technology, some of which, of course, as Orthodox Christians we need to resist, even if they're accurate and even if they're true. I want to question the ultimate value of the artificial intelligence. The avatar programs, I can certainly see the value medically because they can restore movement to people who are quadriplegic or paraplegic, people who have amputations, people injured in war and battle can benefit a great deal from them. But as substitutes for human beings, I have a few questions. The other developments in secular social society that equally need to be resisted within the church. These technological advances, there's really nothing we can do to resist them in the world, but we should at least be aware of them and be unsettled by some of them. Those advances, developments, changes in social attitudes and society in general, even when they're based on scientifically accurate propositions, sometimes should also be resisted. We hear a lot of things about abortion, and we know that we oppose it, that we resist that within the church. And yet, of course, abortion takes place within the Orthodox Christian communities, or at least nominally Orthodox Christian nations, at a higher percentage than it does in many non-Christian nations, or ones that are not reputed to be Christian. So a lot of the problem has to do with the way we educate our own people and the way we deal with these issues on a face-to-face basis much closer to home. We see that in every state in the United States, fairly soon, probably by a declaration of the Supreme Court of America, we'll have same-sex marriages, as do several states already, Canada and a dozen other countries, or maybe more than a dozen now. But we could never allow that within the Orthodox Church. It doesn't matter what scientific basis. Of course, we know homosexuality is not a matter of choice. It can't be changed. We know that already from very solid scientific basis. Nevertheless, same-sex marriages can never take place within the Orthodox Church, and it would have to, any proposition otherwise would have to be resisted absolutely. We're talking now about revelation and prophecy. A lot of this resistance, though, has to do with education, with teaching, and with understanding properly the meaning of things. When we see human-computer interface, that is the human brain and computers interfacing, in a way that you can already begin to exchange information. So far, most of the information is flowing to the computer, not back to the brain. But very soon, the entire brain will be able to downplay the entire brain into computer systems of some kind, and be able to create avatars, which will be exactly like the human beings that they're the images of. And it creating a form of life, but it's artificial. Artificial intelligence, that is to say, human-created systems of intelligence, are already a reality. They're just sharpening them and increasing and picking them up. Now, to what degree this dehumanizes humans and makes some of our atrocities perhaps a little more easy. But we do have to be aware of these rapid developments and of the changes and transformations that they're working within human beings, human consciousness, and human interactions and interrelations. This is rather substantially something that really is developing so rapidly, and it's encompassing so much of human experience, and it's encompassing so much of what helps shape and form the human mind, the external part of it that can be formed, that is after the birth, the shaping and understandings that human beings have, are being based more and more on the technologies and the science, just as our communications are, and even our interhuman relationships, which are very often reduced down to things like text messaging and Facebook and that sort of thing. At the same time, giving a younger generation a much broader and more comprehensive picture of the world, because we're communicating with people, not just friends from school, we're communicating with people in other countries, and being updated regularly about what's taking place in actual human lives in other countries. So we're faced with a lot of these developments, and people get irritated or upset or over anxious when we talk about them sometimes. Now, one of the things we do know from neurobiology is that when people's prized or deeply held models of reality or ideologies are challenged in some way, the brain is going to shift back to the most primitive resources of the brain for basic survival instincts are going to be called into play. And many times they're going to override reason and override some of the stops, checks, and balances that are in the brain. And these primitive self-survival modes, which are in a way unnecessary in this case, but nevertheless, we know that this is what happens. The brain, when a deeply held model of reality or something is challenged, nevertheless, the person is resorting back to the very, very primitive survival portions of the brain and instincts, and becomes then unable to reasonably listen to or study or try to understand through these new developments that challenge these models of reality or deeply held ideologies. And this, of course, can make for some dangers. People have started wars, killed billions of people over the thousands of years of history because of models of reality and ideologies. So it can be dangerous. So we need to look very carefully at those things which, within the church, within the boundaries of the church, need to be especially resisted, realizing that we're not going to turn these things back in secular civil society, but trying to teach our own people another way of dealing with the circumstances of life. Two or three principal things, of course, abortion being one of them, becomes more and more liberalized, and in the process really it has a kind of dehumanizing effect, not just on fetuses, but dehumanizing effect on human beings, all human beings as well. So there's a very great cumulative price to pay. On the other side of the balance sheet, abortions, the number of abortions have radically decreased in most of the Western world. And the percentage of decrease in Canada and the United States has been rather remarkable. And maybe it has to do with some of our challenging people to think again about abortion, or maybe it's just a realization gradually unfolding in people that there's something desperately wrong with devaluing human life and human beings in this manner, and coming to realize that whether a child has not been born yet or has been born, they're still a child. And what we do, we're still doing to a child. And these are all important factors. The question of human brain-computer interface is something we'll have to discuss at some length as it develops. I will be involved, God willing, if I'm still alive or my health holds out, which is, of course, a considerable question, but be at a conference on these developments in artificial intelligence and other things sometime in June. And I'll try to report that a little more completely. From the point of view of the Orthodox Peace Fellowship, of which I'm a member, how these things will be used in warfare, how they can dehumanize and depersonalize warfare, and make it easier to fight wars and kill more people. It's kind of sanitizing war. That's something that I'll, of course, report on to the Orthodox Peace Fellowship. In other respects, of course, we need to see the positive side of these developments as well as negative sides, and figure out what we could do to have some influence one way or the other in some of these processes. We realize that there's very little voice that we're going to have, and very little that we're going to be listened to in almost all of these issues, because one country starts to develop the avatar system, which can have military applications. A dozen other countries are going to do the same almost instantly. And, we can't really have that great an influence. So a lot of times we have to resort to our prayers, to fasting about given problems, and just to the kind of struggle that an Orthodox life is called upon to put forward. Again, the idea that we should have women in the priesthood, I don't hear very much of this in the Orthodox Church. But I do know that some of it is around. Now, instead of arguing on silly superstitious reasons about why women are not in the priesthood, I would suggest our book on gender, The Mystery of Gender and Human Sexuality, which does discuss this from a theological point of view, not some kind of superstitions about menstruation or women can't grow beards or nonsense like this. But there are really profound reasons within the realm of revelation and prophecy, and solid theological reasons why we could not have women consecrated to the priesthood. The same with same-sex marriages. It's not our place to persecute people or to try to destroy people's lives or try to turn back the tide of what's happening in the secular world, because we can't. Science is against us, and some kinds of concepts of empathy and fairness are also against us. But when we talk about marriage in the Orthodox Church, we're also talking about very profound elements of revelation and prophecy, and that revelation and prophecy must be defended at all costs. It's a part of the great mystery of mankind, of humanity. But we have to do this on the basis and in the proposition of what the revelation and the prophecy is and what the theology is. Above all, the revelation and the prophecy. We can't just say about, oh, well, God hates these people or hates that people. There's something much more profound. Something that's so profound that we need to do everything within our power to prevent divorces from taking place. Because, of course, divorce is really a tragedy. And we want to understand that divorce also violates this revelation and this prophecy. Now, I do want to call upon at least the clergy, some of whom really sometimes become quite hysterical when we talk about developments in science and technology, understanding neurobiology, our deeper and more profound understanding of the human person, which really challenges and sometimes absolutely overturns deeply held models of reality and ideologies. And it's counterproductive to try to protect or defend bankrupt ideologies, models of reality that have been clearly proved to be wrong, and yet at the same time expect people to take us seriously about these much more profound and meaningful issues that deal with prophecy and revelation in life itself. So I'd like to call upon people to become a little more knowledgeable of these things that are taking place. And the developments are so rapid that one's head can spin trying to keep up with them, but at least to some degree, and not make utter absolute fools of ourselves by challenging, trying to preserve models of reality that are clearly false, clearly proved to be false, and ideologies which are really completely quite bankrupt. We cannot both preserve the prophecy and revelation and espouse things that are clearly abject falsehood now. Once upon a time they might have been sincerely believed. Now no one can sincerely believe them. It is simply resorting to the R complex of the primitive region of the brain as a reflex for self-preservation to preserve these models and these ideologies. And it's very important that our people learn more about this and take steps to engage the world as it really is, not as our fantasy would hold, but to engage modernity, to engage technology, to engage science, and to learn the truth, the things that have been clearly proved, clearly demonstrated, and understand that when we have models of reality which have been clearly disproved and overturned, we need to give them up and reshape our models of reality. And we can do that within the framework of our theology, our revelation, and our prophecy. We cannot, however, maintain and defend completely false models of reality from any point of view that has anything to do with truth and morality itself. So I just want to call upon people to engage these things, and if you wish to engage me, to converse about them as well, but to especially bishops and priests, to really bring ourselves into reality itself, to the knowledge of reality, and look at the different ways we have to go, the different tactics we have to use, and the different methods that we have to employ in order to resist within the church those things that must be resisted, that need to be resisted, and to do it with some kind of integrity, not with some kind of idolatry of fear or fear tactics, but with some kind of real integrity to resist those things which ought to be resisted, and to acknowledge and embrace those things which have developed in the realm of knowledge and understanding and science, which we ought to embrace. I think this is absolutely essential if the church is really going to be functioning in any way that it should 25 years from now, even 10 years from now. So I just want to call upon people to think about that and try to grasp it. So thank you very much, and God bless you.